Craig's host. So the first thing we're going to do, I emailed to everyone that registered, unless you registered super late. I emailed everyone a sample. So if you want to print it or follow along, so get that out real quick while we go through the first 3 slides. I sent out a mock-up sample appraisal because one thing is a lot of people think that they know them, but they don't. So there's 2 things. There's no stupid questions today. We're here to learn. And number 2, please, I know you think you know it, but please just pay attention. We're going to take the first 10 minutes. Craig is going to set a timer. We're going to take 10 minutes and actually go through what an appraisal looks like. Okay. The first thing I want to say is everyone's going to be receiving some information later today about our 90-day lock-in shop. Baret, do you want to give 1 second and tell everybody what that product is? Because it's amazing.
I think it'll help probably with some people that are scared of the current market, seeing rates moving up. I'm sure you have some nervous buyers. This is really helpful for the buyers that are buying figure like under a $650,000 loan level. So your first timers more than the jumbo buyers. We can actually lock their rate for up to 90 days, even if they don't own if they haven't found a home. It only costs a $500 refundable deposit. They have 45 days to find a home. And as long as they find it in 45 days and close before the 90, their lock is good, despite what the market does. And then the other good part of it is that we actually underwrite the file simultaneously. So then we can issue you like a pre-commitment as opposed to a pre-approval. So it's good for buyers that want to work with us. They've kind of committed to us, and we've gotten a lot of their documents, and it'll give you probably a much stronger pre-approval and a much more prepared buyer, and one that may be even more motivated, but one that's definitely scared of the market. Not for all loans, but certainly great for like that first timer who's so worried they saw rates go up 1%, and also helps when you have a tight deal. At least it guarantees what that rate would be, so that the rate doesn't move up, which means debt ratio moves up, which means that same person that qualified may not qualify. So it's solid for people just shopping around right now, having a little trouble finding homes, but want to guarantee their rate for the next 90 days. If after 45 days they haven't found a house, they get the money back. And then we start from
Did everybody hear that? There's nothing to lose. We're not going to keep their money. So I'm not going to use names, but Reggie Clay, if you're on, my friend, this might be a perfect idea for you that I mentioned to talk with Baret. And I know everyone like Reggie has clients out there like this. So we'll send some more information by end of day. If you have any questions, please call myself or Baret. I also want to introduce really quick, Mike Kelly's on the call, First Lunch and Learn. He's our new sales manager for our team. He's a rock star. He comes with a huge amount of knowledge. He's from NJ Lenders. We've overlooked that fine detail. But I just want to welcome him. I can't say enough about him. So anyone has any questions about the 90-day lock-in shop, myself, Baret, or Mike, okay? Here we go. So second slide. I think everybody, because we were delayed, I apologize. We're going to skip all these. We're going to send out the deck. So you know who I am, pretty much. You know who Baret is. And then Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a couple, your history, your background, and then also a couple things about you, because you are a human being and you are a very nice guy.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Even though you're associated with appraisals. So tell us the 2 minutes about yourself and the myth versus fact, which is hilarious. This made my day. It is true. Baret is better looking than Jeff. It's a complete misconception.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff Finley.
So I appreciate you guys' time and having me, and good to see all of you, or those of you that I know. Basically, I've been in the appraisal world about 25 years, had a traditional or still have a traditional appraisal company called First Source Appraisal that we do a bunch of work with you guys in Hudson County, Bergen County, all of New Jersey. And then maybe 5-7 years ago, I created a national appraisal management company that we also own and operate. We kind of, Baret was one of our initial customers with First Source Appraisal many years ago, and we've kind of grown and had a good relationship along the way with you guys and your team. But again, looking forward to speaking with you, and if you have any questions, let me know along the way.
Awesome. So the first thing I want to say, just housekeeping, is I promised Jeff that he would get out of here at 1 o'clock. Hard stop at 1. He has a flight to catch. But listen, we will answer all of your questions that are not answered at 1 o'clock. If we haven't answered them, I'm going to leave the chat open for a few more minutes after 1 o'clock. Type them into the chat, and we are going to copy the chat, and we will answer every question and get back to everyone. Okay, so just don't worry. We will address everything. It just might not be today. So the first thing I want to do is, and Craig can time us, we're going to take 10 minutes and we're going to go over, Jeff. This is the one you sent me last year, which is hilarious. So we're going to talk about Joe and Betty Jones. Can you, everybody, again, if you printed it out, it might be easier. Just walk us through the major points of an appraisal.
Yep, will do. So couple things to keep in mind before we start to dig into this. With a single family home, there's really 3 approaches to value, how the appraiser determines the final estimate of value. The main one that probably you all know and are familiar with is the sales comparison approach. That's when an appraiser looks at recent sales in the area, makes adjustments for differences, and then comes to his conclusion of value. The other that doesn't work for condos, but is done on multifamilies or single families, is the cost approach. That's where they figure out how much the land is worth and then how much it costs to build that home new, and then takes away depreciation. It's an antiquated approach. It's really only utilized for new construction, but even in that case, everybody's really going to use the sales comparison approach as long as the data is there. And then finally, if you have an investment property, or a multifamily, you're going to come across what's called the income approach. And that's when they're trying to determine value based on the income that the property can produce or has the potential to produce. A residential appraisal is going to be anything from 1 to 4 units. Commercial appraisal is retail, mixed use, or 5 or more residential units. That is, the income approach is typically the primary approach to value on a commercial report, because commercial properties are mostly income producing and driven. But in the residential world, 99% of the time, everything is going to revolve around the sales comparison approach, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. So taking that into effect, looking at the appraisal report you have here. This particular one is 21 pages. Now, of the 21 pages, the meat and potatoes are basically 5 pages worth of information. There's a lot of form filler items or boilerplate items that are within a report, a lot of photos, a lot of maps or whatnot. I'll try to walk you through the important items and may jump around just a little bit so you get to see the entire 21 pages. Definitively, I would incorporate the knowledge of the appraisal into your arsenal no matter what, because from time to time you are going to have a problem. You're going to have a borrower ask you questions, and for you to be able to defend something if there is a value issue, if there are conditions on a report, and to be able to locate it and speak professionally about it, it's in your best interest. And I know a lot of you guys probably already have a good understanding of the report. So right here, you're looking at page 1 of 21. I'm sure you guys all have it up on your desktop. Again, stop me if you have any questions. This is a lot of factual information about the property. If you look at the left-hand column of the page, you see that black column that labels each section: subject, contract, neighborhood, site, improvements. Those are just breaking out this page into the specific categories. The subject information, a lot of the legal description, if it was listed, that's where you'll find much of this. The contract section, any concessions, you can see there's a $3,500 concession with a $206,000 purchase price. A lot of this stuff is just factual, not value related. Neighborhood, the important stuff in the neighborhood section is, especially these days, are what are prices doing, how is the inventory, and what's the marketing time. In a lot of our areas right now, and you can see this information where it says 1 unit housing trends. In our areas right now, marketing time is pretty much always under 90 days. As far as supply, there's typically a shortage, maybe imbalance, really not oversupplied or even close to it. and then property values. Many areas, as you guys have been experiencing, have had increasing values, but that is pretty important information on page 1. You keep going down, you have information about the site, and then also you have information about the improvements. The improvements are anything that's built upon, that land. And the really, I guess, kind of important section to note here for you guys, I would say, is maybe 3 questions or 3 lines up from the bottom. It says, describe the condition of the property. And you'll see C4 there. So that C4 is a condition rating, C for condition. And the 4, they rank it on a score of 1 to 6. So a C1 is brand new construction. A C6 is destroyed, you could not live in it. Most of your homes are going to be between C3 and C4. A C3 is really good shape, remodeled in the past 15, 20 years. A C4 is in good shape, but probably hasn't been touched in, 15, 20 plus years, give or take. Just to give you the other ratings, C2 is either something that was recently brand new or fully renovated, gut renovated. And then C5 is really beat up, but you can live in it. So that's just kind of the bird's eye view of those condition ratings. If you keep going down to page 2, this is really the most important section of an appraisal report. It is the sales comparison approach. You can see the columns. There's the column for the subject data, comp 1, comp 2, and comp 3. Those are the 3 sales comps that the appraiser has utilized to try to determine their value. And the way this sales grid works is up top, it'll put the sales price for that comp. And then as you work your way down the table, the appraiser will make adjustments for differences or factors that would influence the value of that property compared to ours. What the appraiser is trying to do is trying to take a sales price from a similar home and kind of back into or make it something comparable to the subject and what that subject would have sold for at that time. So just to give you a quick example of comp 1, as you work down, it sold for $224 and change. There was a $4,700 concession. He's subtracting it from the sales price because if you pay $24 and change and you're getting $4,000 plus back, you really only paid, call it $220. Then you see the next adjustment minus $2,000. That comp has a larger lot size than the subject. So he's trying to say that difference in the lot size equates to $2,000. So we're going to take it away from that sales price because that comp is better. And as you continue to work down, you see another $2,000 adjustment, which goes towards the bedroom. The subject has an extra bedroom, so the subject's better in that case. So you're adding back value. I'll run through the last couple quickly. That comp has a basement. It's superior to the subject, so the appraiser's taking away value there. That comp has a deck compared to the deck and patio versus the subject only having a patio, so that comp is superior. The appraiser's taking away $3,000. And finally, that comp has an extra fireplace, so it's superior, and the appraiser's taking away $2,000. After all that's done, that comp adjusts to $205,000. That's where the appraiser is determining his value off of what's called the adjusted values. You'll see next to there, it has gross adjustments of 10%. The more adjustments there are, typically the worse the comp is. The best comps are the most identical with having the least amount of adjustments. So if we're looking at just 3 comps here, you have adjusted values of 205, 218, 199. And really the best comp, if you're just looking at adjustments, would be that comp 2 that has 4.5% gross adjustments, and it goes to 218, which is the high mark. This appraiser came in at 206, and you can see that if you continue to scroll down, there's a section on the very bottom saying reconciliation. And that's where you can also see the 3 approaches to value. It says sales comparison approach 206, which we just went over. Cost approach is done elsewhere in the report, which we'll breeze by really quickly. And this is where it's giving you that conclusion. Income approach wasn't done. It's a single family home. A lot of times, many areas, they're not rented out and it's not a quality approach to value, so they won't do it. And then finally, the bottom number, the appraiser reconciles to 206. You see the date of 9/24/14 there. That is the effective date. So he's saying as of that date, here's the value. And that date's very, very important. We can't use future information to base a value as of an effective date. So even if you had 10 sales closed a week later that were much different, it wouldn't matter because we're taking that value as of that point in time. You can go ahead and stop me when you need to move on.
Jeff, I'll make one quick comment on that. I
yeah.
get a lot of people that ask me about, they're like, oh, well, we just had this close right next door. And then, you know, obviously if it was done after the appraisal, maybe it's on there as a listing, but you can't really give a ton of weight to it. So as agents, if you know there's a closing that's happening that you know is going to help your value, just push the appraisal off until that closing happens if it's close. So if it's a, you know, if it's happening in a week and you're pretty certain from the other agent that it's closing in a week, just, you know, talk to us and then let's push the appraisal off 1 week. And then that way you can use that comp the day after it closes. And that might be a really strong comp. Obviously it's a good one. Otherwise, you have to have the appraisal redone, like literally have to have, like, you know, our office give us the okay, I have to go through someone, I have to get the okay to use that comp and have to have the whole thing redone. So you know,
let's be really, that's a great point, Baret. So let's be really clear for the agents on here. So Jeff, well, let's give a specific example, okay? If my appraisal is today, okay, and tomorrow something closes, can we use that comp and send it in, or does it have to be redone?
Technically, it doesn't matter if it's a day, a month, or a year. If it closes after the effective date, it's future information.
Okay,
now,
let's say that again. That's huge. And the effective date, everyone, okay, like I want to see like heads nod. The effective date is the date of the appraisal. Of the inspection.
Yep. So they're gonna, whenever day that appraiser inspects that property, that's gonna be the effective date, which is also, you know, that the date that the value is based off of. And the reason why a lot of, you know, people say, well, can't you just change the effective date to a week later so that we can have that comp as closed? The problem is, and it's a very small percentage, but it has happened, is if that appraiser goes out there Monday and it then says, well, my effective date was Wednesday, there could have been something that happened on Tuesday that all of a sudden changed everything. And we've seen it, like there's been a fire, there's been a flood. And so
100%.
You know, that's where that effective date.
I'm gonna stand up for, everybody knows I'm like very fair, right? So in fairness to the appraisers, like they're not being mean, they're not being, you know, like they're doing their job. The day they inspect the property is the date. So that's why I just want to explain, that's why Baret's saying, push it off, right? If you know something's closing, don't think, well, I'll just send them the comp the next day. That's not going to work. You're going to have to issue a complete another appraisal. So that is awesome. That is great information. Okay. So if anybody has a question about that, pop it into the chat. Okay. Cause we're going to keep moving on. That's a great tidbit. So, okay, perfect. So Craig just said 10 minutes. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to do,